In March 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley set sail with her family on what was meant to be an unforgettable trip. The cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas from the Royal Caribbean Company would take them through the Caribbean from Puerto Rico to Aruba with stops at Paradise Islands. It was a dream trip that would soon turn into a desperate nightmare that has haunted its protagonists for almost 3 decades. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. As we've already seen in other reports, disappearances of people on land happen much more often than we imagine, unleashing distressing ups and downs that often end in bewildering dead ends. Finding a person is by no means an easy odyssey, disappearing while at sea. Much worse, out there where the waters belong to no country and where jurisdiction dissolves like foam among the waves. Any investigation becomes a bureaucratic labyrinth. With today's case, we'll discover that cruise ships are small floating worlds that follow flag laws, meaning the laws of the country where they're registered. Often these laws don't align with the country of departure or the passenger's destination. This gray area creates a risky legal loophole. When someone disappears on a cruise ship, the investigation process often gets stuck between inaction, ambiguous procedures, and resistance. What happened to that girl who vanished among thousands of other people in the late 1990s? Who are the main suspects in her abduction? What leads have been followed in recent years? What intriguing sightings were reported? What did her tireless family members discover in their fight to uncover the truth? Why is there talk of a huge network of accomplices who helped twist the fate of this young woman with a promising future? In an attempt to answer this and other questions, we will delve into the dark case of Amy Bradley. Let's begin. Amy was born on May 12, 1974 in Petersburg, Virginia. It is known that she grew up in a close-knit and loving home. Her parents, Ron and Ava Bradley, worked hard to give her and her younger brother, Brad, a stable life full of opportunities. Ron Bradley, an insurance executive, was pragmatic, structured, and very protective of his family. Ava, for her part, was always described as gentle, empathetic, and endlessly patient. Together, they formed a solid couple who prioritized family values and honesty. Brad, for his part, was outgoing and charismatic. Even though they had different personalities, he and Amy were connected by a strong and sincere bond. They spent time together listening to music and sharing sibling secrets. Brad admired her deeply, and Amy took care of him as if it were her personal responsibility. They weren't just siblings, they were partners in crime. This model of a perfect family would be called into question later on, but we'll get to that. What matters for now is that Amy was lively, curious, and energetic from a young age. She had a presence that, I quote, filled the room, a contagious smile, and a particular sensitivity that set her apart from other children her age. She liked animals, nature, music, and art. Her elementary school teachers remembered her active class participation, solidarity with classmates, and natural leadership. She wasn't shy, but she wasn't arrogant either. She was one of those people who just knew how to make a good impression. But what Amy stood out the most in was sports. She started swimming at the age of 6 and quickly became an expert. Her aquatic skills were impressive. She could spend hours in the pool or in the sea, gliding as if she belonged to that world. She also played basketball and softball. And during high school, she became one of the most well-rounded athletes in the school, even earning the title of lifeguard. As she grew up, her personality became even more distinctive. She was independent, firm in her views, and strongly ethical. Injustices bothered her, which made her very prone to lengthy debates. She wasn't afraid to speak up when something felt wrong, but her determination always came with great kindness. She liked to write in her diary. She was obsessed with what was considered alternative music from the 90s, and she dreamed of traveling the world. College was a time of personal growth for her. Amy received an athletic scholarship to study psychology at Longwood University, and there, in addition to excelling as a student and athlete, she went through significant personal processes. It was during this period that she decided to share something important with her family. She identified as part of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender plus community. She acted honestly and confidently, receiving a loving, accepting response from her parents. Or at least that's what they say. After graduating, Amy became a lifeguard and planned to move out to further her independence. She was a young woman with ambitions and dreams for the future. Nothing suggested that soon her face would become synonymous with tragedy, a trip that would change everything. The Bradleys cherished their time together, so they planned family vacations months ahead. That's precisely why the cruise trip they took in 1998 had a special meaning. The ticket wasn't purchased in the traditional way. Ron won it at his job as recognition for his performance as an employee. It was a kind of corporate prize that included a week of travel for him and his family. Everything was fully paid. An unexpected gift, the family decided to take advantage of it as an end-of-cycle celebration. Amy had just graduated, Brad was on vacation, and it was an opportunity for the four of them to reconnect. Amy hesitated at first. She wasn't a fan of enclosed environments or controlled spaces like cruises. She agreed, promising it would be their last family trip before her new independent life. So, with some skepticism but also excitement, she boarded the Rhapsody of the Seas, not knowing she was signing her own sentence. The first days went by completely normally. Luxurious dinners, majestic landscapes, and many stories that soon made the trip unforgettable. True to her personality, Amy quickly formed a sort of camaraderie with other passengers and crew members. Spending time with her was synonymous with laughter, and she soon became an outstanding passenger. Amy was in the spotlight. However, according to what is known today, maybe that was what put her in the sights of certain people. People who were not looking for friendship. Exactly. The night of the disappearance. On the night of March 23, 1998, the Rhapsody of the Seas was floating peacefully on the waters of the Caribbean. The Bradley family had dinner together at one of the ship's restaurants, celebrating the fact that they were together. After dinner, Brad and Amy went to the cruise ship's nightclub, the Calypso Lunch. There, the band Blue Orchid was playing, made up of Caribbean musicians who livened up the nights with reggae, funk, and international pop music. The atmosphere was festive. The drinks were flowing, the tourists were dancing, and the lights moved in hypnotic pulses. The cruise ship's security cameras caught Amy dancing with several people, but especially with the band's bassist, Alistair Yellow Douglas. Their movements were friendly, though intimate. At one point, you can see her smiling broadly while Yellow whispers in her ear. Brad, her brother, watched them from a certain distance, immersed in his own group of new friends. Around 3:40 a.m., both siblings returned to the family cabin, just a few minutes apart. According to the records, thanks to the access cards, Ava and Ron were already asleep. Brad, exhausted from partying, went to bed, while Amy stepped onto the private balcony to smoke. Around 5:30, Ron woke up and saw the figure of his daughter through the curtains. Amy was still on the balcony and seemed to be asleep on a lounge chair. Calm and knowing that his two children were safe and sound, the man went back to bed, but a bad feeling had settled in him. 25 minutes later, Ron got up when he heard a sharp noise. It sounded like the cabin door. When he checked again, he confirmed that Amy was no longer there. The deck chair was empty, the cigarette was finished, her shoes were still in the room, but the lighter was gone. Initially, Ron and Iba assumed Amy might have gone for coffee or was on the upper deck photographing the sunrise. But minutes went by and there was no sign of her. Trusting his instincts, her father set out to find her. He searched in the restaurant, in the hallways, in the pool, nothing. They went to the reception, but no one had seen her. They asked the crew, but nobody knew anything. It wasn't until mid-morning that the ship's authorities began to take the matter somewhat seriously, but even so, they refused to close the exits. By that time, the ship had already docked in Curaçao and thousands of people had gone ashore. The family begged for an announcement to be made over the loudspeaker, something to alert the passengers. But the captain refused, claiming that it could cause unnecessary panic. Furthermore, according to him, they couldn't take more significant actions considering that Amy was an adult. A limited search was allowed in parts of the ship hours later, but it was already too late. In the time between 5:30 a.m. and 7 a.m., Amy had disappeared without a trace. The ship and its silence. As we mentioned, Royal Caribbean waited hours to inform the authorities. They didn't close the port or stop passengers from disembarking. The Bradley family said the company cared more about its image than finding Amy. Not knowing what else to do, Ron, Iva, and Brad took advantage of being anchored to look for a United States embassy. Today, there is a lot of speculation about what happened during those hours when the Bradleys left the cruise ship. Was this the perfect time for her to vanish? Key evidence? For 4 days, the Coast Guard, helicopters, and rescue teams combed the area. They thought Amy had fallen into the sea, even though the ship's safety measures made that unlikely. With no tangible clue to justify it, the ridiculous accident theory began to lose strength. When the Bradleys asked to review all the security footage, they were denied access. And the captain even went so far as to suggest that maybe Amy hadn't fallen, but that she might have jumped into the sea voluntarily. The possibility was quickly dismissed by those who knew the girl well. Amy showed no signs of depression or suicidal thoughts. In fact, she had specific plans. She was excited to move out, had a promising career ahead, and a strong supportive family network. Plain and simple, her profile didn't seem to fit that kind of behavior. The cruise ship's attitude felt cold and bureaucratic. As if, rather than solving a mystery, they were trying to contain a scandal. Was there something more? Several members of the cleaning staff stated, although informally, that they had been ordered not to speak with the Bradley family and that the word disappearance was to be avoided among the staff. The ship arrived at its next port as if nothing had happened. Just protocol? Or were the first steps of a chilling conspiracy being taken? What had happened to Amy? Had she been tricked into getting off the ship? Had she been kidnapped by someone from the crew? Was she hiding? But why? Looking into these questions made the family start paying attention to certain details that until then had gone unnoticed. And that's how our story goes back to the beginning. Suspicions about Yellow Douglas. Alistair Yellow Douglas was the last known person to see Amy alive, although he initially claimed to have returned alone to his cabin after the party. Several witnesses claimed to have seen them together around 6 a.m. when Amy had supposedly already disappeared. The most disturbing thing is what he said to Brad, Amy's brother, shortly after the search began. His words were, and I quote, "I'm so sorry about your sister, Brad." He would later remember it as something chilling and out of place. How did Douglas know they wouldn't find Amy anymore? Immediately singled out, Douglas agreed to a lie detector test, but the results were inconclusive. His story didn't match that of other witnesses. Despite this, he was never arrested or formally considered a suspect. In the ship's video records, Douglas appears several times covering his face when he passes near the cameras. His evasive and tense gestures were analyzed by body language experts who suggest that he was hiding something. That attitude, combined with his inconsistencies, placed him under a cloud of suspicion that never completely dissipated. Over the years, Douglas faded from view. In 2024, he was found living in Granada, working as an exorcist in a small spiritual community. Amika confronted her father on camera for the Netflix documentary. He responded evasively. When they mentioned Amy, Douglas changed the subject and showed discomfort. Guilt? Did he know something he never wanted to reveal? Later, Douglas made a statement that sparked controversy. He said Amy confessed she didn't want to take the trip. Her parents forced her, and the real reason was they didn't accept her sexual orientation. However, this statement was immediately rejected by Amy's parents, who clearly remembered supporting their daughter. When she told them about her identity, Ava and Ron insisted they would never force Amy to do anything against her will, and that the trip was a consensual decision, celebrated by everyone. Douglas's statement seemed more like a strategy to divert attention or sow confusion than a sincere revelation. And that wasn't the only thing. More and more pieces of the puzzle began to take on new meaning as the hours went by. And what about the deleted photographs? The cruise ship had professional photographers who took snapshots of the passengers to later sell them as souvenirs. They were displayed in a large room so that interested people could look through them and see if they liked any. During the investigation, it was discovered that some photos of Amy taken on the night of her disappearance had been mysteriously deleted from the ship's database. Several passengers had seen them, but they were no longer available. The company never gave a clear explanation. This fueled a theory as disturbing as it was possible. Amy might have been photographed without her consent and offered in a human trafficking catalog. That is, selected during the cruise by some client or organized network. An attractive, athletic young woman, alone and far from home without legal protection, an easy target. The missing images suggest someone on the ship with internal system access may have helped. Was Amy then the victim of a planned kidnapping? Was there complicity among the crew members? Was she sold before anyone noticed her absence? Here, the name Douglas appears again. Years later, his ex-wife would claim that she had found one of the man's suitcases in which indeed there were many photos of young women. This could never be proven with reliable evidence, so the testimony never gained official relevance. At the same time, after Amy's disappearance, disturbing testimonies began to emerge. People from various Caribbean locations claimed they saw her. Some coincidences were too specific to be ignored. Others were too disturbing not to be taken seriously. In March 1998, a taxi driver in Curaçao claimed to have seen a desperate young woman who matched the description of Amy. She was barefoot, upset, and asked for a phone. When the taxi driver tried to help, two men appeared and took her. Months later, two Canadian divers said they saw her on a beach escorted by an aggressive man. The woman had the same tattoos as Amy. Later, a member of the United States Navy claimed to have seen Amy in a brothel in Curaçao. The young woman reportedly approached him with a look of desperation and clearly said to him, and I quote, "My name is Amy Bradley, I need help." The officer said he delayed reporting the incident for years due to fear of retaliation. This considerably reduced the possibility of verifying the information. That, and the fact that, according to some sources, that brothel was set on fire at a very convenient time. Later, a Canadian woman named Judy Morer claimed to have seen Amy in a public restroom at a shopping mall in Barbados. She described a woman with tattoos identical to the girl's, accompanied by three men who seemed to be controlling her. Judy said the young woman seemed nervous, like she wanted to speak but was afraid. That report was followed by a composite sketch and a local investigation that did not lead to any concrete results. In 2005, another woman at a hotel in Caracas reported seeing an American woman who introduced herself as Amy and said she was trapped. The investigators were unable to find that person. In addition to the sightings, photographs found on an adult website were circulated. In one of them, a woman with features similar to Amy's was shown in a sexualized pose and with a vacant look. Her identity was never officially confirmed, but the resemblance was so strong that the family sent the image to the FBI. To this day, the photograph is still being analyzed by facial recognition experts. All of this contributed to the case gaining media notoriety. Amy Lynn Bradley started appearing on news broadcasts across the United States. In fact, she was featured in special episodes of America's Most Wanted, The Montel Williams Show, Unsolved Mysteries, and Dr. Phil. Each appearance renewed public interest and rekindled hope of finding her alive. The family didn't withdraw. Instead, they used every moment on camera to share their story and request international cooperation. The Bradleys became involuntary activists, learning to live with the pain and the exposure. For years, they gave interviews, traveled to hotspots in the Caribbean, met with federal agents, and hired private investigators. But despite everything, dead ends continued to abound. The sightings were hopeful but imprecise, and the leads were too fragile to support an accusation. What they did achieve was to put the public eye on a problem that until then had been somewhat hidden from society. Amy became the visible face of human trafficking. The Holloway Connection. During the investigations following the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, a name began to circulate with disturbing frequency: Carlos and Charlie's, a bar in Orangestad, Aruba, known for its wild parties and for attracting young tourists from all over the world. According to some informal witnesses, Amy had mentioned that she had been invited to that place when the ship docked. What few people knew is that this was not an ordinary place. In 2005, 7 years after Amy disappeared, another young American woman, Natalie Holloway, 18 years old, mysteriously disappeared after she was last seen in that same bar. Both young women shared some alarming characteristics. They were attractive, free-spirited, were on vacation with their families, and disappeared under mysterious circumstances on a Caribbean island. Amy had reportedly declined the proposal to go to Carlos and Charlie's, at least publicly. But what isn't clear is whether someone else could have convinced her or even forced her to secretly go ashore. Orangestad Port was a destination for Rhapsody of the Seas. The security cameras didn't record her getting off, but some witnesses claimed to have seen her on land, near the bar area. The Holloway case fueled new speculation about the reach of trafficking networks in the Caribbean, and the chance that Carlos and Charlie served as a recruitment point. The similarity of the cases, including the negligence of local authorities and the slow response from tourism companies, opened the door to a chilling hypothesis that both cases may be connected not by coincidence but by pattern. Was Amy Lynn perhaps one of the first names on a dark list that remains active to this day? In 2025, Netflix released the documentary Amy Bradley is Missing. For the first time in years, the case made headlines again. Unpublished testimonies, interviews with FBI agents, and new theories support this production. Brad, Amy's brother, said, "The series shows less than 10% of what we know. It would have taken 10 seasons. In the midst of desperation, the Bradley family created the website amybradleysmissing.com, a platform that gathers all the available information about the case. The site contains a detailed timeline of the events, pictures of Amy, updates on the investigations, press clippings, and testimonies from those who claim to have seen her. It also features digitally aged portraits to show what she might look like today." One of his recent posts states the following: "Now, with the release of a new docuseries, Amy's story will be shared with the world. We believe this could be a turning point. Does anyone know anything? We are raising funds to follow credible leads, consult with experts, get legal support if necessary, and travel wherever needed to uncover the truth. Whether it leads us to Amy or brings those responsible to justice, we must be ready. If you've heard about this story or have been following it and ever wondered how you could help, this is the moment. Every dollar brings us one step closer to the answer and helps us keep our promise. Amy, we will never give up. But beyond the data, what really stands out is the tone of the site. It's not just a database, it's a cry for help. A journal where Ron, Ava, and Brad write open letters to Amy. Letters that always end the same way and repeat the same phrase, Amy. If you're reading this, we will never stop looking for you. Never." Since 2000, over 300 people have vanished from cruise ships worldwide. Most of these cases involve young women. A disturbing number of those disappearances happened in Caribbean waters. Why is that area so prone to this kind of crime? The answer is uncomfortable. The Caribbean is a network of scattered islands, many with weak judicial systems, endemic corruption, and actively operating human trafficking networks. The maritime routes constantly intersect, and tourism makes it easy. It's the perfect cover for predators to blend in with the general public without raising suspicion. Cruise ships, far from being safe spaces, are opaque structures where security depends on private companies. The staff is often not trained to handle serious crimes. Security cameras cover limited areas, records are not audited by external authorities, and the protocols in case of disappearance are lax. Worse, even when a high-profile disappearance occurs, each party tries to wash their hands of responsibility. That fragmentation leaves justice literally adrift. Amy Lynn Bradley was declared dead in 2010. The FBI is offering a $25,000 reward, and the family adds $250,000 for information leading to her rescue. Her story still drifts in doubts, silences, and whispers. Witnesses keep appearing, questions multiply, and the suspects become blurred. Over the years, the truth, like her, remains lost at sea. The Bradley family's strength partly comes from a seemingly minor detail found on their website. Some cybersecurity and digital tracking experts stated that there were recurring visits to the site from unidentified areas in the Caribbean with unusual patterns, always in the early morning, from anonymous devices, on holidays or birthdays, with specific movements through certain sections of the site. Especially the letters from the family addressed to Amy, which led some to believe Amy might still be alive. That somehow she accessed a phone or computer at specific times. She visits the Bradley family's website when she needs connection, encouragement, or remembrance. Why then doesn't she make herself known? Here, the theories multiply. Some believe she could be threatened, under the control of a network that prevents her from communicating. Others think her identity was changed, that she lives in fear, or that her trauma damaged her psyche so much she prefers staying in the shadows rather than reliving it. They say maybe she's being blackmailed because she has children. Again, it's all speculation. Whatever the truth may be, the idea that Amy is silently reading her family's words makes the tragedy even more heartbreaking, but certainly hopeful. What happened to Amy? Was she a victim of trafficking? Was she kidnapped by someone from the crew? Was there complicity with the higher-ups in power? What role did Douglas really play? Most importantly, will this story end happily? Will we ever see her alive again? And that's it for today's video. If you found it interesting, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I also want to remind you that we've activated the new channel memberships. Get early video access, 24, 48, or 72 hours ahead, and your name featured as thanks. And also get access to an exclusive monthly video. You just have to click the button that says join right below. And with just $1 a month, you'll be helping and supporting us so we can keep moving forward with this project. Huh? If you're interested in getting these benefits, just click join and that's it. Enter the information that YouTube will ask you for. And with that, you're already helping us a lot. I'll leave a couple of videos here for you to keep binge watching. That's all. Goodbye. I'm Magnus Mephisto. See you in the next video. Goodbye.